Salam and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Muslim Network TV is always there wherever you're watching Muslim. It is on Galaxy 19 satellite, covering whole United States, Canada, and Mexico, coast to coast, east to west, north to south. 57 million subscribers throughout the country. You can always watch us on OTT devices like Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, or download our app, Muslim Network TV, or our own website, muslimnetwork.tv. Today, we will try to understand who were these people who invaded Capitol Hill and what are their names, what are their organizations, what are their ideologies. CNN bosses have allowed CNN to call them terrorists. Who needed permission of anybody to call anybody anything? But anyway, they are doing it. One thing is clear that they were there on the call of President Trump. And there were extreme right-wing militia. There are names of those who gave a call. I visited their website, and several of them were armed. It included elected leaders also, mayor, legislators, different people serving in different capacities, some police officer, a lot of veterans, but there is a call to investigate if there were soldiers who are on duty, who participated in there as well. There has been these people were talking about openly about capturing leader, not only Pelosi, but also Vice President Pence, and executing them. Actually, they have set up gallows with the nose hanging there, which has been widely photographed. And they were tweeting "Hang Mike Pence" to the level that Twitter has to stop that hashtag from trending. So it was pretty open. And it was extremely well planned. Washington Post reported today that the day before the invasion of the US Capitol, an arm of the Republican Attorney Generals, there is something called Republican Attorney General Association, it sent out a robocall asking supporters to come to DC and quote unquote fight Congress over President Trump's baseless, fight Congress. That was the call they have given. An army secretary have told some senators, and they have issued that Pentagon, quote, is aware of further possible threats posed by would-be terrorists in the days up to and including inaugural day, unquote, and is coordinating with local and federal law enforcement. So the danger of terrorism has not passed. There's a still ongoing danger. But what shocked me really was that in one of the media interviews, somebody interviewed, I think it was New York Times, a teacher. And the teacher was okay with what was going on. And when the reporter asked people standing around, it turned out 3 other teachers were part of that group as well. I wonder how many other teachers were there. It surprised me, but then I started recalling. I remember Ahmed, the kid who, with different parts, develop a clock and as a science project in Texas, who teachers call police, and police actually handcuffed the 7th grader. And there was a big news about that. But what there was not a big news was that 25% of all teachers are Islamophobe who are involved in harassing and discriminating against Muslim kids. So this seems to be not limited to some right-wing militias. If teachers and officers and firefighters, then there are our neighbors. Who are these neighbors and what they believe in? Well, I'm not an expert. Let's try to understand a little better about our neighbors and who is doing that through an expert. He is Daryl Johnson. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Daryl.
Thank you for having me.
Daryl Johnson is an expert on domestic extremist group in the United States. He's founder of DT Analytics and formerly a senior analyst at the Department of Homeland Security. Well, welcome to Muslim Network TV, Daryl. What were you doing at the Department of Homeland Security?
Yeah, so I was a senior intelligence specialist in charge of looking at domestic non-Islamic extremism and domestic terrorism. So I was a team lead and I had analysts working under me looking at different domestic threats.
So what was the size of that team?
So it was myself and there were 5 other analysts, and then we had 2 other analysts supplementing our team. One was an open source analyst that was looking at publicly available information on the internet, and another analyst looking at kind of futures alternative analysis. So there's a total of about 7 or 8 of us.
How many are there left?
Well, there's no one currently in the Office of Intelligence and Analysis devoted to looking at these subjects full time. They kind of supplement and complement state and local fusion centers' efforts, but there's no analytical team looking at this issue since my team was dissolved in 2009.
Oh, team was actually dissolved.
Yes.
Why was it dissolved?
Yeah, they did a total restructuring. They stopped all the valuable training and reports that we were writing.
Huh. So was the reason was there was not enough funding, or the reason was that you guys were doing a pretty bad job, or what was the reason?
We were actually doing a very good job. We had lots of letters of recommendation from, police chiefs, sheriffs, for the different support that we offered. It was all done for political reasons. I had written an assessment that forecasted the rise of anti-government and hate groups, what we call right-wing extremism, and it was used as a political tool to bash the new incoming Obama administration by the conservatives and the Republican Party.
And President Obama administration gave in?
Pretty much. They put up a little bit of a fight in the beginning to try to defend the report, but once conservative criticism mounted, the Obama administration pretty much caved into the political pressure.
Well, news is that most of the people selected by the president-elect Biden are the Obama staffers. Do you expect any better focus on the right-wing extremism?
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say yes, given what's happened not only in the past 10 years, but this recent Capitol siege, I think will provide enough determination from these individuals to finally start taking this threat seriously.
Well, let's talk about who are these people. Tell me, who are these people? Do you know them?
I don't know them personally, but they're representative of our, families and communities throughout the country. They're conservative leaning. They're very avid Trump supporters, and they've been pretty much brainwashed into thinking that this election was rigged and that there was rampant voter fraud, and they have answered the president's call in coming to Washington, D.C. to defend what they perceive as their constitutional rights being eroded.
You put it in a way that these are all over. I mean, you didn't say these are particular this group or that group, but they are all our people, all our neighbors.
Yeah, so you had a large crowd that came in from, various parts of the country. And then within this crowd of, people that were concerned, although their concerns were invalid, you had these hardcore extreme elements, representative groups like the Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters and people that adhere to the QAnon conspiracy theories. These are the individuals that are more hardcore, radical, and were pretty much at the center of all the violence that we saw last week.
So there were different layers and layers of commitment of different people. One of the name which has come in different newspapers, or they were 3%ers. What is 3%ers?
So 3%ers are a segment of the modern day militia movement. These are paramilitaries that, arm themselves, conduct paramilitary training. So they refer to themselves as the 3%ers because their founder believed that only 3% of the colonial Americans took up arms against the British occupation during the American Revolution. Now, this fact has never been substantiated by historians, but their belief is that they represent the 3% of modern day Americans that are taking up arms against the tyrannical U.S. government.
Okay, so when were they founded? Any idea?
Yeah, they were founded in 2008 by a man called Mike Vanderboog. He's since deceased, but he came up with this movement and this idea, and it's a lifestyle. These people adhere to these belief systems as family units, and the whole family is pretty much part of the 3% movement. They have various chapters across the United States. In fact, there's been some splintering among the groups. So there's different factions within the 3%er movement, but it's representative by thousands of people across the United States.
Oh, they definitely have a lot following, because I was looking at Alexa, which is a Amazon company, about the ranking. Their website ranks at 118,000 level in the United States, so a whole lot of people visiting it. So are they focused in a particular part of America, or they're scattered?
They are representative throughout all 48 continental United States and even Alaska. They did have a large social media presence, so even the numbers that you're citing are just websites. They recently had a lot of their Facebook pages and Twitter accounts shut down and banned. So there was actually probably a lot more social media presence, several months ago.
So you mentioned that they started 2008. Did it coincide intentionally with the election of President Obama, thinking that he's a Kenyan-born Muslim and we have to protect our country?
Absolutely. And along with that, Barack Obama was a Democrat. And so these militia groups are very fervent about their Second Amendment rights, and they always fear that when a Democrat comes into power, that's going to lead to new gun laws and gun restrictions and even gun confiscations. And so a lot of fear and paranoia within their belief system centers on the Democrats taking their guns away.
Yeah, I remember at 2008, 2009, there was a historic spike in terms of people purchasing guns, and same thing's happening now, by the way. I mean, I was there to get my car fixed, and he's an African-American mechanic, and he was armed, and he got license, his mother got license, his sister got license, and they're saying, oh, it is very difficult to find ammunition nowadays. I say, what? I thought you're not into these things. You say, well, you got to protect yourself. So it seems now not only the right wing, but I mean, this guy is absolutely non-political, but the people's sense of insecurity seems to be spreading beyond the ideological ranks, it seems like. Now, so these 3%ers were present in the, I read some newspaper report that they were present in the invasion of Capitol Hill.
Yeah, so you can tell some of these people by the symbols that they wear on their clothes or flags that they may be flying. So there's a whole symbology that goes along with these different extremist movements. So the three percenters, some of the symbology that's associated with them is the Roman numeral 3, which represents the 3%. Sometimes the Gadsden Minuteman flag, that yellow flag with the snake coiled up that said "Don't tread on me," is also affiliated with three percenters as well as militia members and other anti-government groups.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with right-wing extremist expert Daryl Johnson, whose department was just simply, whose section in the Homeland Security to watch was shut down when President Obama's administration caved in because they were reporting about these people. We'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adam. You remember me? I appeared in so many episodes that Sound Vision has put on the market. No matter what. Hey, what's happening? Hey, oh, sorry. Lockdown is what it is. Well, continuing here. In this lockdown, Sound Vision never stops thinking about you, the viewer. We'll have to get back into production again, online and inline. Everybody in their own space, even me. Although I'm stuck with Lanisa.
Salam! Salam! Salam!
I know, you were shocked too. Well, let me continue. This is what I was going to say. Salam! 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 Cut! 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 Finally, I get my own screen time again. Thank God. And so we invested in new equipment to bring you even better production with new songs and new singers and animations. Well, here are a few clips. And Sound Vision has brought all this into your home, making Islamic values and teachings easy. And if you know me, Adam, a multi-talented actor, well, sometimes I'm an actor and the reporter and the... Oh, that's enough. Let's move on to the next section. Well, you can watch these new episodes on our new app at www.adamsworldapp.com. We have previews happening every day on Muslim Network TV. Sound Vision has been serving generations, moving and changing with the times. We are all faithfully connected. That is a huge blessing. Your donation helps keep these programs available now and into the future. We take this job of helping tomorrow's Muslims today seriously, and you should too. Today, we need your help. Children absorb and learn from everything they encounter. Make that wholesome, positive, grounded in our faith. Together, we can accomplish our goal of raising better Muslims, better neighbors, and better citizens. Please donate generously. It's an investment in our future. To finish, let me tell you, there are new scripts of my new mission. And it is something that I enjoy talking about. My new mission is space. Houston,
We do not have a problem. Salam. See you soon.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. We're talking with Daryl Johnson, who's an expert on those people who are a part of invading Capitol Hill. There is another group which was standing there. They had this olive drab shirts, helmets, and patches, and saying "Guardian of the Republic," and not on our watch, and things like that. Oath keepers. Who are Oath Keepers?
So Oath Keepers is an anti-government group that was founded in April 2009. And they have representatives across the country as well, chapters, and their specific focus is trying to recruit former, current military, police officers, and firefighters into their organizations. And they call themselves the Oath Keepers because they have their members swear an oath to the organization to basically protect their interpretation of the Constitution and what they feel the country should be represented by.
And this seems to be more popular than 3%ers on the website. I haven't checked the social media, but their ranking is 38,000 in the United States, which is extremely wide, and 671 websites are linking to them. Which is extraordinary. I mean, some major corporations don't have that type of ranking. Most of the not-for-profit organizations don't have this type of ranking. And they very openly say that on their website, our men are current serving or prior service law enforcement. I noticed this is their declaration from their size. Current serving, prior service, law enforcement, military, and other first responders, such as EMT and paramedics and firefighters. This is what they're saying their membership is. Is it legal for serving military and serving police officers to join a militia like that?
Yeah, so this group isn't particularly a paramilitary organization like 3%ers. They're more of an anti-government group, but they do have members of the militia within their ranks. But here in America, these people have constitutional rights to believe in these conspiracy theories and in this hatred. And so for a long time, they hide behind the First Amendment protection of free speech. And a lot of police and military organizations haven't taken any action towards them. But as we've seen this summer with all the social unrest related to social injustice, now we've seen this, riot at the Capitol, this insurrection, and these people participating in it. It really points to the fact that should these people who are, empowered to police our streets and to protect our nation. They're trained in, firearms and other types of weapons, whether these people are trustworthy to hold these positions and whether or not they should have security clearances. Because obviously when you belong to a group that believes in conspiracy theories or is conducting paramilitary training and you're participating in insurrection against the government, these types of activities, are not conducive to people who have been entrusted by the community with these, police and military powers. So I would encourage, the military as well as police departments to look at these individuals, not from a criminal standpoint, but from a, insider threat, counterintelligence, operational security concern. Should these people possess clearances? I don't believe they should, because they're not trustworthy and they're not showing us that they can be objective in enforcing, our laws and, protecting our country. So we need to take administrative action against these people, remove their clearances, put them on desk jobs rather than patrolling our communities, and restrict them from having access to sensitive information as well as sensitive areas in the department.
Do they drive some of their, I was on their website, Oath Keepers, I saw that they're going to be there in Washington, D.C. Of course, they were mobilizing to keep an eye on Antifa, who attacks weak, old, disabled, or families, like the hyenas they are, quote unquote. So do they thrive on a conceived opposition?
Yeah, this has been a recent wrinkle to their belief systems, is this threat of Antifa. It's been furthered by the president's false accusations that Antifa is a terrorist organization. Some Antifa members did engage in civil disturbance and violence during the social injustice protests, but it's a much smaller movement, and it's lone individuals. It's not a terrorist organization per se. So this threat's kind of been hyped and manufactured, and now these different extremist groups on the far right are looking at them as a major threat to their communities.
So like 3%ers and Oath Keepers who have the website and social media presence, is Antifa also has a website and social presence, and they behave like an organization?
Like I said, to my knowledge, they don't have a website. They're more of a belief system, a movement. So you can't look at these as organizations. They're basically people that are standing up to the fascism and protesting it. And you do have some, violent elements of it and some criminal activity that was associated with it. But, by and far, when you compare these two threats, the far right far outweighs and has shown far more violence, far more deaths involving people than the far left activists have to this point.
Their website of the Oath Keepers says that they work side by side with many other patriot groups and veteran organizations, and they have given a call, okay, we are going, everybody should come, and we will coordinate our action. So is coordination among these militia groups is a well-established thing, or they coordinate on action but not otherwise?
They've been getting better and better at communicating and forming these coalitions and coming together against a common enemy, whether it be Democrats, the media, Antifa, what have you. So we have seen a greater level of sophistication and coordination with these far-right groups than we have in the past.
Now, but these organizations have taken a stand against the federal government. They have been threatening federal employees and all that. The famous case was that Wendy's cows are still roaming around the federal property, and he's not paid any fines. And the 3%ers and the Oath keepers were involved at that time. They didn't suffer anything. And they is threatening federal officers and things like that is legal?
No, it's illegal. And there were some people that were at the Bundy standoff in 2014, as well as the Malheur standoff in 2016, that did face federal charges for threatening federal officials. But as you state, Cliven Bundy himself, who remains a figure in the far right, as continues to, instigate and call for action against the government. And we're going to be seeing this type of stuff in the near future for the next few years.
So, he's the hero. He was victorious. Federal government forces retrieved. And so did that encourage further recruitment, that federal government was nice and kind to them?
It certainly did. The fact that, number one, they had that standoff, that helped recruit people and radicalize them. But then when the charges against Cliven Bundy and his other co-conspirators were eventually thrown out of court, that additionally emboldened some of these people and furthered their defiance towards the federal government, much like this Capitol siege did.
So Capitol siege, you think, will encourage further recruitment?
Yeah, a lot of people were looking at this as kind of, the last dying breath of a movement in desperation. But no, this is actually beginning of a new radical form of right-wing extremism, and it's not going to be going away anytime soon. So don't have the false sense of hope that just because they had this big rally at the Capitol and that they were able to storm the Capitol and they feel like they've accomplished some of their goals. This is just another event in a long series of events that's been going on for a decade and will go into the future for years to come. So we need to get ready now to, get serious about this threat and start developing policies and procedures and devote resources and money to combat this problem, or it's just going to continue to get worse.
You mentioned devote resources and money to research and all that. Government is government. We'll talk about the government and what to expect from Biden administration. But in civil society, are there people who are seriously looking at these things?
Well, thank goodness we have the private sector and academia started looking at this issue right after my report was leaked and pilloried in the media. We started getting more interest in academia, and non-government think tanks started looking at this. And so we're developing better capabilities to kind of fill in these information gaps that we weren't aware of, like funding and how they're organizing and how they're networking with each other and how they recruit and radicalize. So that's about the only good thing that's been happening, because the federal government really hasn't taken this threat seriously until last year.
When you say federal government hasn't taken this threat seriously until last year, but there were reports, FBI, I think, saying that the right-wing terrorism is number one, or domestic terrorism is a number one threat and things like that. So they're part of the government. So is it the same situation that one part of the government doesn't know what other part of the government doing?
Well, the FBI, they're a federal law enforcement agency, and they did come out on the record in 2019, finally stating that this is a national security threat. I called that threat out back in 2009, and we had a decade where basically everybody ignored the problem, downplayed it, tried to dismiss it, and hoped that it would go away. But it's just grown stronger year after year, plot after plot, attack after attack. So finally, the FBI recognizes this in 2019. I think that was a little bit too late, but at least they did acknowledge it, and they're starting to do something about it now. We need other federal agencies, as well as our legislators, the president, our state governors. Everybody needs to get on board and acknowledge this threat and bring all resources to bear on this problem so that we can repel it and try to get our society back to normal.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Daryl Johnson, who is an expert on those people who invaded the capital. We'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum!
I love Adam's world because it makes me learn in a fun way. That Adam has a green face and orange hair. I like this song. I like how Adam sings. I like Adam's world because it makes me happy. What? No. And here's Adam and here's Anissa. Adam is and his sister. Adam is a boy and he is very smart.
Download the new Adam's World app at adamsworldapp.com and let's help tomorrow's Muslims today.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and we're talking with Daryl Johnson, who's an expert on right-wing extremists. And 10 years ago, he predicted that these things are something which we need to pay attention to. In terms of ideology, I like to understand different parts of this ideology. Oath Keeper's website says, help us, I'm quoting, help us defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So this thing comes because they believe that the federal government itself is not enough to protect the Constitution against all enemies. What are the basis of this thought in these groups?
So you got to remember, these individuals have a different interpretation of what the Constitution is to them. It's not representative of what the country feels, and it's only representative of predominantly white America, Judeo-Christian beliefs. So they feel that, the government through its policies, expanding rights to minorities, letting, immigrants come into the country, allowing Muslims to worship freely, that these are threats to what their perception of the United States and democracy is. And like I said, it's a false notion that's basically built on a patriarchal, misogynistic viewpoint of America, as well as a Christian America. They don't look at it as the melting pot where there's people from all countries, cultures, and religious backgrounds to come together and unite. They want a predominantly white America based on Judeo-Christian values, and, stop immigration from coming in and stop the browning of America.
You mentioned Judeo-Christian values a couple of times, but there were people with anti-Semitic messages there. One was wearing this phrase on his sweatshirt, Camp Auschwitz. And so there is a mix of anti-Semitic people in there as well.
Yeah, so we did have white supremacists and anti-Semites attending this rally, and they're also part of this, broad movement of right-wing extremists as well.
And but probably one thing common among them is being Islamophobes and anti-Muslim.
Yes, that is at the heart of particularly the anti-government and the white supremacist groups is this notion that Muslims are here in America, they're increasing in numbers, they're building mosques in our communities, soon they're going to be implementing Sharia law. These are the misperceptions and conspiracies that are out there that fuel this Islamophobia. So
do you think that Muslim community need to be more concerned about the right wing and their ideologies in terms of their personal security or security of their properties?
Definitely. White supremacists, hate all races and people, but in particular, the 3%ers pose a unique threat to the Muslim American community because they have a lot of returning veterans that have fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they come back with these preconceived notions about Islam and Muslims. And they are the ones that have been targeting and actively carrying out attacks and plotting attacks against Muslims. A couple of cases that come to mind is the Minnesota White Rabbit Militia, which was comprised of 3%ers. They threw a pipe bomb into a mosque in Bloomington, as well as tried to burn down an abortion clinic. We also had the Crusaders Militia out in Kansas a few years ago that was caught plotting to detonate a vehicle bomb at a Somali immigrant apartment complex, predominantly Muslim Americans there. We've also had armed protests held at mosques conducted by the 3%ers. So, I would encourage, Muslim leaders as well as, Muslim followers here in America to be aware of your surroundings. And if you have a 3%er militia in your community, that definitely bears watching, and you should be working with your local law enforcement as well as the media to, form lines of communication, establish relationships of trust to kind of keep an eye on these types of threats in your community.
There was one mention that these people who invaded, many of them believe that Trump is God's way of preparing for the rupture. So what is that?
Yeah, so a lot of these right-wing extremist groups have radical interpretations of, scripture. They believe that they're living in the end times. They believe that, Christ's coming is soon. And so they feel that they have a part in hastening, preparation for Jesus Christ's return. And so there's a lot of Christian fundamentalist beliefs within these right-wing extremist movements. And sometimes they use the Bible to justify criminal activity and violence.
Daryl, one of the things which, one participant who became very prominent is because she was killed by a police officer and she was trying to enter the area where congresspersons were there, and police officer first tried to block. Finally, they probably were tired or hurt. There's videograph that all those 3 officers who were in front of the mob and the door was behind them left. And then when they came bombing, there's a police officer who shot, and Miss Babbitt. So one thing unique about her which has come out is of course, she was a young person, 35-year-old, probably 15-year veteran of the Air Force. but she was an Obama voter. So it seems that she was not a racist person. I mean, she voted for a person who was accused of being born in Kenya and accused of being Muslim, none of that being true. And she keep mentioning that, and she defends that Obama did this good and that good. How that a person like that is transformed into a person who is taking a leading role in this invasion of Capitol Hill?
It just goes to show you how people can be recruited and radicalized any number of ways. I mean, I'm sure the authorities, when they look at this incident, the shooting, and they do a background investigation on who Ashley Babbitt was, they'll find out that there was somebody in her life that was influential and likely brought her into this movement, or she could have been introduced, through the propaganda on the internet. But these people, that get sucked into these different extremist movements and, this disinformation that the Trump administration have been putting out about the rigged election and voter fraud. People have very, passionate opinions about these false claims. And so they get kind of consumed into this, world of conspiracy theories and disinformation. And because they love their country so much, they take action because of it. And it's unfortunate that, these people, get introduced to this type of stuff and get actively involved in it to the point where they do things that they normally wouldn't have done. And it cost this young woman her life.
Yeah, she seems to be a very passionate person and paid with her life for all of that. I mean, I don't want to sound sympathetic to somebody who is invading, but a young person, 5 people died during this thing, and including an officer who was beaten to death by these people, and who was by the way, that police officer was a Trump voter, a supporter of Trump, a Republican who will write to Congressperson who was a Democrat, politely insisting on his views, a good human being who was a Republican and Trump supporter, was beaten to death by these people. So they say that this lady, Ms. Babbitt, was, through QAnon theories, she bought into that Trump is destined to take care of this cabal of child abuser and Satan worshipping Democrats. What is this thing about child abuser, satanic? First define what is QAnon. Who are these people and who started that thing?
Yeah, so the media has done some investigation and determined that there's like 3 or 4 people that were involved in spreading or starting this QAnon conspiracy theory. What it is it's a conspiracy theory by this person that they call Q, because he supposedly has this high level clearance in the government called a Q clearance, and he's remained anonymous. And so that's where the Anon part of the QAnon conspiracy comes from, is this Q person that's anonymous who's supposedly leaking inside information from the government about impending arrests against Democratic leaders, these false allegations that there's this secret pedophile network within the Democratic Party, that they're secretly being led by satanic influence to take away our rights and erode our Constitution and turn us into this socialist communist type government. So there's all kinds of little, what they call Q drops, which is this inside information, these, disinformation really, about these secret going-ons in the high levels of government that they're sharing with the general public. And so it creates this atmosphere that these people are getting this firsthand information from this high government ranking person with this special access to information. And so it really comes across as something that sounds credible, and people are gullible and they believe anything.
So Q is some type of existing government category of high level clearance. and they believe there is somebody in the government with that clearance who gives them information to mobilize the people to be true patriots, supporting the government, deal with the bad guys who happen to be all Democrats and they're all child molesters and oh boy. So
Yeah. And so, as you can imagine, people are very passionate about protecting children's rights. And when you make these types of allegations, it can really tug at somebody's heart and mind to get them really committed and involved in these types of things. But like I said, the media's investigated it. They've linked it back to these 3 or 4 individuals who basically set up the websites and were communicating this information from this anonymous person. They've still yet to identify who Q actually is, or whether this person is just a figment of these 3 individuals' imagination.
So 3 individuals are known individuals, but who is Q is unknown.
Right. It could be a fictitious person that these people invented, or it could actually be another person that's making up these lies and spreading this disinformation.
That's amazing. But there are publicly elected people. I mean, this Derek Evans guy, who was the Republican elected officers in the West Virginia, who just lost, who had to resign because of he was live streaming what he was doing. So do you think all of them are influenced by QAnon ideology, or it is a different variation of people?
Right. Not everybody in the Republican Party or conservatives adhere to this belief system. It's the more radical people. And in fact, there were, I believe, close to 80 different individuals across the United States running for political office on this past election that adhered and openly admitted that they adhered to this QAnon conspiracy theory. I must say that the FBI, because of some of the actions by some of these QAnon followers adhering to this conspiracy theory, has determined that QAnon is actually a domestic terrorist threat that's growing in its level of danger. And we saw that not only with some of the past plotting and activities by these people, but with their recent participation in this Capitol insurrection.
But their website and these things are still active, or there is some action taken on that?
They have websites and social media that spreads the conspiracy theory. Facebook just recently did a major purge, as well as Twitter, of trying to get rid of these accounts that spreads this ideology. But, they've got other ways to communicate, and they'll just migrate to another platform and regather there. And so this information leaks out in different forms, whether it's through emails, on social media or a website. And then people propagate it on their own personal social media and websites, and by word of mouth. And so it's really kind of difficult to, totally get rid of it, because if people believe in it, they're going to find a way to communicate about it.
Tell me a little bit. I mean, I'm curious, although this was just a couple of people who are doing that. There was a shirtless man wearing face paint and, horned hat and all that. What does that symbolize? I mean, I saw 3-4 people who have this type of fur with them. Are they symbolizing some type of pioneer spirit or something?
You'd probably have to ask them. My guess would be, they're kind of going back to their Nordic heritage, the white race coming out of Northern Europe and just dressing in costume to get attention. But I personally don't know what the motivations or personal beliefs of those individuals wearing those types of costumes. We saw other costumes present, like people dressing in colonial America, people dressing like military personnel and things like that. So this is all just part of these subcultures that exist within these far-right movements.
Hillary Clinton today has written an op-ed in the Washington Post, and she says that she quotes the 9/11 Commission report, that it says the most important failure, and I quote, was one of imagination. We do not believe leaders understood the gravity of the threat, unquote. Do you think the same case applies to what has happened during this period? Homeland Security was a mega department to save, which came out of 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, we are that they dismiss you and your section who was investigating, which was itself was just 7 people, as compared to I don't know how many hundreds who were investigating the other threats. So, do you think this Hillary Clinton is right that thinking that's a failure of imagination?
Yeah, so much like 9/11, I believe that this incident at the Capitol is going to have a similar type of effect on, getting our legislature and our federal government and law enforcement authorities working together to combat a national security threat. Now, of course, the Capitol, siege didn't result in the same number of deaths or the same amount of property destruction as the 9/11 attacks, but it surely posed a threat to our Constitution, to our republic, and how our government functions. So the gravity of the situation, I think, kind of parallels and is on par with what happened at 9/11. So, obviously the authorities didn't connect the dots in this case, much like in 9/11. There was plenty of chatter about violence that was going to occur, but yet, there were institutional biases and, jurisdictional infighting that prevented these authorities to have enough physical protection and countermeasures in place to mitigate the threat. So, I think it is a watershed moment, and we're going to be looking back on this moment, a decade from now and say, this is the moment that we all, had the resolve to finally recognize this threat and do something about it.
Daryl, we just got a half a minute. Tell me this, what policies do you think President-elect should adopt as soon as he, the first day in office, in the first 30 days, to realize that government is set to deal with a new threat, which is essentially a old threat, because you told people 10 years ago about this threat?
Well, I can't cover everything within 30 seconds, but they can start with passing a domestic terrorism statute that delineates roles and responsibilities among federal agencies and hold them accountable for providing the information that we need to develop more strategies and tools to combat the problem. I think we also need to institute a nationwide program in our schools, much like the counter-drug program or anti-gang program. We need to have programs in our schools where students have clubs that get educated about the hate in America and the anti-government and the dangers of conspiracy theories, to try to teach our young children that these forms of extremism and conspiracy theories are a threat, just much like drugs and gangs are a threat to our communities. So, we need to work individually together to, identify threats in our community. If we have family members or friends or coworkers that are members of these extremist movements, rather than ostracize and distance yourself from them, try to embrace them with love and compassion, bring them back and reacclimate into our society and be productive citizens. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, in addition to having more analysts and police officers that are trained in this type of threat and how to recognize it and how to combat it.
Well, thank you so much, Daryl. Daryl Johnson is an expert on right-wing terrorism who 10 years ago was leading the team in the Homeland Security Department about this threat. But his first report caused him to lose his job during the good old days of President Obama, who caved in instead of taking a stand and keeping an eye. If it was paid attention to, we may not have seen the invasion of Capitol Hill by the terrorist if we have paid attention and organized. And thank you so much, Sherdil Khan and Dr. Abdul Wahid, for producing today's show. And thank you for watching. You're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite. We are on OTT devices, Apple TV, Amazon, Fire TV, Roku. You can download our app, Muslim Network TV, or check on our website, muslimnetwork.tv. And if you're a person who is always on YouTube, you can watch us on YouTube And when you do that, do subscribe to us. Peace. Salam.